Remember the last sikha, we just finished learning why is it that Abraham forced the people. Because sometimes that's the way it has to be done, and the Rebbe brought a lot of examples with Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon, and with that you have to force a person sometimes to give a divorce bill to his wife, and that's called of his free will when he does it. And the story of the Rabbi Rashab, remember that? And he made the person cry. You remember that story? And he had to break the shell.
What page did you say we're on?
We're on page 21.
21?
21. No, what book are you? No, we're in Aleph here. Lukuti Sifas Aleph. At the Sipur Abba, this story, Kfar Siparti Mispar Pamim. I saw it. I've said it a lot of times. The Rebbe is saying, because this is the date of the birthday of the fifth Rebbe of Chabad, called the Rebbe Rashab, Rebbe Shalom Dovber, the father of the previous Rebbe, is a Sapro Pam Nosefet. I'll tell it another time. Okay, with me? Good? What is the story? Maybe I'll just say it in English. So we have a little. The Rebbe Rashab used to go in, when the Rebbe Shalom Dovber, when he was a small child, 4 or 5 years old, it says, he used to go in every year to his grandfather, who was the third Rebbe of Chabad. He was called the Tzemach Tzedek. The Rabbi Menachem Mendel wrote a lot of books also on Chassidut and on even one book on philosophy. And a lot of books on law. Anyway, he would go in every year in order to receive a blessing. It could be that he did this with other of his grandsons as well. Well, when the Rebbe went in, the Rebbe Rashab, like I say, he was only 4 or 5 years old. This was, it can't be that he was less than that or more than that. He was born in Tov Reish Chaf Aleph, which means 1861. He was born. Huh? Yeah, 1861. And on five years after that, the Tzemach Tzedek passed away. So anyway, the Rebbe Rashab, when he was a small boy, either 4 or 5 years old, he was not yet at the age of education. You educate, it says you teach a child to read actually Chumash when he's 5. So he was 4, maybe 5 years old. He came into his grandfather and he started to cry. When his father said, "What are you crying for? You came in, it's your birthday, you should be happy. I'm coming to give you a blessing." The boy said that he learned in the Chumash that day, or maybe he heard from his teacher, that there is a portion of the Torah called Vayeira, which means that God appeared to Abraham. Like this week. And he was crying. So what are you crying for? He said, because I'm crying out, why doesn't God appear to me? He wanted to see God. There was a little boy, 4 years old. He wanted to see God. Why doesn't God appear to me? The Tzemach said his grandfather answered him, when a Jew, some people say when a Jew that's a tzaddik, a totally righteous Jew, 99 years old, decides that he has to circumcise himself, he hasn't done enough, he has to circumcise himself, then it's proper that God should appear to him. This answer settled the mind of the child, and he stopped weeping.
It's quite extraordinary that you should understand the answer.
Okay, let's understand the answer. Let's understand also the question. I mean, he was a 4-year-old child. He wanted to see God. Even though this happened when the Rebbe Rashab, when the Rebbe Shalom Dovber was just a child, before he was bar mitzvah, even before he reached the age of education. So we can learn something from the story. What? The fact that, first of all, the Rebbe, and also the fact that the Rebbe told the story to his son, the previous Rebbe, and this was also told to us, it must be that there is a special message in this for us. So first of all, this story, it's a question and answer. He came to his father and asked him a question, and he got an answer. Okay, Herschel. From the crying, Gimel, we're on Gimel. Mi b'chiyaso shel Rebbe, al she'en HaKadosh Baruch Hu nirav, from the fact that this small child was crying because God didn't appear to him, yesh lahasik shekol Yehudi, that every Jew, b'kol matzav shehu nimtza bo, no matter what situation he's in, even if he's in an age that he cannot be educated, he's not yet the age of education. What does it mean? A Jew that is so stubborn and so, what do you want to call it, thick-minded, thick-hearted, that you can't educate him. You can't tell him anything about God. Nevertheless, this person right, he can't receive anything from anybody else. Nevertheless, it could be that this person is old. Could be that he's older than 13, maybe he's even 50. But spiritually, Ruchnesu B'darga Katan, he's a small child. He didn't reach the age of education. Like the previous Rebbe said, that the years of a Jew are not counted by what it says in his passport, for good and for bad. A person can be 80 years old and he can be young at heart. A person can be 80 years old and he can be stupid like a 3-year-old child. Right? Yitachen, it could be that a Jew, according to his passport, he's old. But according to his real spiritual years, Torah of mitzvahs, he's just like a little child and he's playing under the table. You see older people. Also, this child, you see a lot of these older people, rich people, they get a lot of money, they do all these crazy things like little children, they want to be. Even this type of a person, that his whole life all he's done is just stupid, childish things, and never done anything. But this person also 1 second can get aroused, and he has a right and to ask and to cry, why don't I see God? Why does a person cry, by the way? A person cries because something is happening that he can't grasp in his mind. It's out of his ability to understand, so that squeezes him, and the squeezing of the uncomfortable, whether it's something good that he can't accept or something, God forbid, the opposite, that's why a person cries. So it says a person like this, that his whole life he's been totally far away from God, doesn't want anything to do with Torah and mitzvahs and everything, he has a right, he's a Jew, he has a right to say, why doesn't God appear to me? And he can cry about it. Shekadosh Baruch Hu Yirah, that God should appear to him like he did Avram Avinu. That's what we can learn from the Rebbe Rashab, even though he was a small child, 4 years old, and he was not the age of education, he cried. Even more, Dalit, okay, Herschel. Rashai Ulishof, he is allowed to, not just to say God should appear to me, but he should desire that God should appear to him just like he appeared to Avram Avinu when he was 99 years old, after he had finished all of his service of circumcising himself and going on and taking his son, the service before the Akedah, of course. Shari Yera Allah Hashem, that God appeared to him. This was the time when he had left his house and he had circumcised himself and he'd been thrown in a fiery furnace and done all these amazing things for God. Right? Avram was a tremendously high level. Nevertheless, this person who is spiritually not educatable, not the age of education, he should, in his soul, has a place there where he really wants God and he wants God to reveal, and he even can cry about it. Even though this revelation to Avram Avinu was before he did the mitzvah of Milah, it's true, that God appeared to him. Even though that God did appear several times before he did the Bris Milah, but this is not the same way it was after he did the Bris Milah, after he did the circumcision. And this is the level that every Jew should not only aspire to, but he deserves. Huh? What do you say, Herschel? When God revealed himself to Abraham after the circumcision, then Abraham was called Avraham with a hey. Before that it was Avram, and when he got the circumcision, God added a hey to his name. That from it the Gemara tells us, Sha'az Hoya Avram Shalid Gam al Chamesh Evorim. says that this letter Hey is the gematria 5. It says before that Abraham did not have complete control over 5 certain limbs, whatever his limbs, abilities, organs. His 2 eyes, his 2 ears, his 2 eyes, his 2 ears, and the place of the circumcision. Circumcision. The nature of these things that a person cannot rule over them totally. You hear things, you see things, right? Person gets aroused by. According to this, that's before that. That's why it was called Avram without the hay. Then he had the ability to rule over only those organs that a normal person can rule over. But after Avram had the circumcision, then even though he did the circumcision on his own, he circumcised himself, nevertheless there was given from him from above the ability to rule over these 5 aspects, his 2 eyes, his 2 ears, and his sexual powers, totally rule over them. Move, and it's understood, Efo. Me'ilav, shehiz galu shahayasa el Avram avinu achar mila hayasa b'darga nailis. If so, this revelation that was to Abraham was at a very, very high level. A level that most people never achieve in their lives. Nevertheless, Rashai call every Jew has the permission. And how do you want to call it? The right. Even such a Jew that is not educatable, in a spiritual way, to demand assertively that God should reveal to him like he revealed himself to Abraham after he did the bris milah. This means you, and it means you, and it even means me. Right? Now you might think, come on, what are you talking about? Where am I and where's this stuff? Here we're learning this in my morning. Oh, by the way, I realized what that end base is in the morning. It says, Nira be'enai. It's a quote from this Kabbalah book. And it says, Nira be'enai, it says that it took a pasuk from the Torah, and he says, it seems to my eyes that it's this talking about Zerav Anpin in Malchus. But nevertheless, the Nun Beis, I thought maybe it was some sort of a Kabbalistic thing. It's not. It just means it seems to me. Nun Beis. Okay, let's go back. From the answer that the Tzemach, so okay, that's what we can understand from the question of the Rebbe Rashab. From the answer that the Tzemach Tzedek gave, that the revelation, LaAvram Avinu, was because that he understood that he had to circumcise himself even after he was 99 years old, and this was a sufficient answer. Avshar lilmod, we can learn. We're now in Hay, right? Avshar lilmod, we can learn. Sha'al afa uvda shakol Yehudi rashoy l'sh'of l'drosh kodesh baruch hu yitgal alav. Even though it's true, every Jew has the right and the merits, every Jew, because he's a Jew, to demand and even to cry that he should have a revelation of God like Abraham did. Abraham, as he was in his after the circumcision, nevertheless, the Tzemach Tzedek says, you have to prepare yourself. It doesn't come free. You have to know that you have to circumcise yourself. You have a right, but you have to circumcise yourself.
Like he answered to his grandson.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, when you're 99 and you're circumcised.
That's what he means. The Tzemach Tzedek's answer tells us that it's not so simple as we thought it was.
You just have the right to ask for it.
You have the right to ask for it, and it's there, and you deserve it, but you have to circumcise yourself. Kolomar, limros ha'mailos ha'rabos shel ha'adam sigol la'atzmo apol, despite whatever level a person has actually reached. Az livchod bachot, or even he has no other merit except for that he cries. He cries, sha'achrei. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Oh, bekoach, or not bachot. I didn't read the letter properly. But bekoach, a person has actually reached, or even that he is potentially reached, Like we say, every Jew has the right to request, no matter how high a person is actually or potentially. Shari b'koach nitna shari is because, and potentially is given the possibility of every Jew to reach to the highest levels. Like it says in the Pasuk, okay, you with me, Herschel? Masha sheninu shekol echad chayav lomar, that every person is obligated to say, Mata yagia ma'asai la'ma'asei avotai Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. Everyone has to say, when will my deeds reach those of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? A person can say, what are you talking about? These are biblical characters. How could I possibly reach this level of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? So the answer to that is very simple. God created them. God creates you. God put them in certain situations. God puts you in different situations. God gave them talents. God gave you talents. The question is not so much how you succeed, but how you react to the situations that are around you. How you react to the situations. It could be that if you lie a little bit, or cheat a little bit, or you're a little bit cowardly, that you'll succeed. You'll make friends, you'll make deals, you'll make this, right? And if you're brave, people won't like you. You're defying them. What are you doing? That's not good, right? Like Abraham did. He didn't have any friends in the beginning. Everybody hated him. That's what's called Abraham Ivri. So it was a failure. He was a total failure. He had no friends. He had no money. He was kicked out of his house, right? But nevertheless, that's what God wants, is your truthfulness, your faithfulness. The fact that you are counted together with Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, this is a hochacha, a proof. This is talking about, when can my level reach the level of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? This is talking about, obviously, Avram in his highest level, because it's talking about Yitzchak and Yaakov that came in. Nevertheless, everyone knows that even if you reach this level, and everyone has the ability to reach this level, nevertheless you have to circumcise yourself. Nevertheless you have to circumcise yourself. Let me just say this in English, okay? Because the next class is beginning. Good? Okay, you with me, Herschel?
How do you circumcise yourself if you've already been circumcised?
Your heart. That you have to do all the time. It's a constant commandment. A heart means to be more sensitive to God, more love of God, more love of the Torah, more love of every Jew, more love of what God wants. Even those people that actually do have accomplished these levels, they are really tzaddikim. They have reached these tremendously high levels, the Baba Sali, whatever you more of a Moshe Feinstein. These people that have really reached a very great level of personal humility and perfection. Nevertheless, just like Abraham, they have to circumcise themselves also. Like the story about the Rebbe Rashab, that once he heard that Rebbe Rashab, he complained that he couldn't hear anything in one ear. When they started to wonder why it was, so it came out that what happened, one time he was saying Chassidut, and someone was disturbing him, and so he removed the power of hearing from one of his ears. So he actually couldn't hear in that ear. He couldn't hear in the people talking in the other room. That's what it means that tzaddikim have the ability to rule over all, like Abraham. He could rule over his eyes, he could rule over his hearing, he could rule over his whole entire being. Because tzaddikim, they rule over all of their abilities. Even these tzaddikim, they have to know that they have to circumcise themselves. What's the reason why? Because what is this thing of a foreskin? What is orla? We davened mincha, so they davened already. They davened. He wanted to make them. Okay. The reason is like this. Just 5 more minutes. Okay, 10 more.
I'm enjoying it.
Good. Okay, good. The reason is because there is such a thing which is called a foreskin. What is this thing of a foreskin? A foreskin is a creation of God. That's how God creates people. God creates every people once in a while, 1 in a million, who knows? But it's a natural creation of God, that God creates males with a foreskin, right? That's what it is. So what is this foreskin? It's natural. What do you mean, what is it? It's a natural thing, like your earlobe or something. It's a natural thing. Says the Rebbe, but spiritually, it could be that it means that this idea of the orla, spiritually could come that a person means that he's selfish and insensitive. He has not revealed his inner connection to God. He's connected to himself. This is what it means by what the Tzemach Tzedek said. A Jew that he's a tzaddik and he's 99 years old, he has to circumcise himself. If a person is 100 years old, it says that the person has refined all of his 10 powers of his soul, all the 10 powers, is he doesn't have to worry. Why? Because a person that's already refined everything, it says like he's dead and he's negated from the world. The world has no effect on him anymore. He just can affect the world. And that's what means spiritually, a person who's 100 years old. But a person who is 99 years old is one little thing before 100. One little thing before 100. What it means that a person is 100 years old means he's refined himself totally. He hasn't got any Yetzer Hora. But a person who is only 99, what it means he's 99? He's in the direction of fixing himself up totally. There's some people that aren't even in the direction at all, right? They're not in no direction at all. You have like the non-religious Jews that make a religion out of being non-religious. Non-religious, this is it. You're a Reform Jew. This is it. I'm a Zionist Jew. I've reached the level. A communist Jew, there's nothing more than that. That's it. That's the ultimate expression. All these other people, Torah, mitzvahs, it just holds them back. You have to be a communist, you have to be a socialist, you have to be a Bundist, you have to be a this, you have to be a conservative Jew, you have to be an integral Jew. There's all these different types of Jews, but they're Jews and they think that's the end. They have reached the pinnacle of their self-expression as a human being and as a Jew, and that's all that there is. Right? That's all that there is. So these people are totally in the wrong direction. But what about a person that he's in the right direction? And he says, I'm going to do Torah and mitzvahs, and I'm going to sit and learn, I'm going to be a good person, I'm going to have a Ahavas Yisrael and this. He's fixed himself up, not just 10%, which is a big miracle if you can do that, and not 20%, but he fixes himself up 99%. The highest level you could possibly imagine that a person could possibly get to. Nevertheless, if he has a little tiny bit of ego, a little tiny bit, he has to circumcise himself. What does it mean, a little tiny bit of ego? He gets a little jealous, sometimes he gets a little depressed, sometimes he gets a little angry, sometimes he gets a little desire for something. Lo hishtalshlus me'olam elyon bo shirui adam le'olam atachton ki biyosa adam kodel ma'isa bereshis va'achal ma'isa bereshis. There's a place lishtalshlus bo atzmo. In other words, a person, not that he's 100, that he's purified all of his whole levels, but it could be that a person, that he's the highest of the high, he can come down to the lowest of the low. A person, he's the greatest, biggest tzaddik you can possibly imagine, but because here you see all of King David's enemies. There's a book written, what happens if you have enemies that hate you for no reason? There's a book, what you're supposed to do. The book is called Psalms. Nothing you can do. All you can do is pray. Absolutely nothing. The more you improve yourself, the more people hate you. The more jealous they are, the more hate you are. If you give in to them and you be their friend, right, then they'll stop hating you because you're a nothing. They won the battle. Right? They won the battle. So where did this come from? Who were his friends? Who were his enemies? Doeg, Achitophel, Absalom, Shimi ben Gera. These people were people that had Ruach HaKodesh. They knew Shimi ben Gera was the Rosh Sanhedrin. They knew what the Urim and the Tumim. They had the power of prophecy, the greatest of the great. But they had one little tiny fault, which they didn't think was a fault: jealousy. Little tiny jealousy, a little thing. They could answer all the questions in the Bible, all the questions you asked them. They could do miracles. They could do anything. And a little tiny thing of jealousy, so it didn't really affect them. That eventually became more and more until the end. They became really the enemies of King David, the king of the Jewish people, and they wanted to kill him. They wanted to kill him. When a person is totally negated, and he knows that no matter how great I am, I have to circumcise myself. What does it mean, circumcise myself? I can't trust myself 100%. Then he knows that his spiritual level is not 100%. Then